Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Lynx River Talk. Today we have with us the one, the only, the amazing
Courchene. Played Wayne Dééla.
Hello, everybody.
How you doing? Nice to see you.
Pretty good. How you guys doing today?
Pretty good.
Thank you. Good to see you guys again.
Yes. How did you get started with acting? Was North of 60 your first acting job?
So, no, 60 was my first acting job. Many of you, well, I don't know if many of you know, but I started out at show, so I'm not open, I was like 10 years old to about 15, 16, I believe. And yes, it was my first acting job. Dad, Jordan Wheeler, I don't know if any of you guys know this, but my dad, Jordan Wheeler, is a story editor on North of 60. And they were looking for Indigenous people to play the characters, obviously, and they approached him because they knew he had kids. They approached him and asked him if any of his kids wanted to audition. And so he brought it home to the family. Me, my mom, and my sister at that time. My sister Kaya at that time. We talked about it. Kaya had no interest in doing it. I was intrigued mainly because the audition got me out of an afternoon of school. So that was pretty awesome. And then, so I go down and audition. And it turns out that I win the part.
Awesome.
So then we had to make a decision of whether I would do it or not. We did it, and because my dad was in the story editor, or was a story editor, and was in the room for the story making decisions, we basically had control over how much I worked and how much I didn't work. And that was based off of school grades, actually.
Oh, wow. So if your grades were bad, you didn't get to work much?
But then well, yes and no. I remember it wasn't the first. It wasn't the second year. I think it was either the fourth or fifth year that I was on the show. Where we had to broke all the labor laws because I was one of the first people on set, and I was one of the last people to leave. So we broke all the child labor laws in that case.
Wow.
Wow. So have you ever watched the show yourself?
Yes, I've seen the show. Of course, we watched it when it came out. It's a big thing to do. It's a great show. Great Canadian television. So yeah, of course we watched it because we're a big believer of Canadian television, Canadian stories, and this happened to be an Indigenous story, which it really was because yes, it's about a Mountie who comes to the north, but the other main character was Michelle, right? Michelle Kennedy, and that in of itself was monumental in just telling Indigenous stories.
Yeah, and once Eric dies, Michelle becomes the main character. You see the other
totally.
Brian is more of the background. You see, actually, Tina Keeper, she goes to be the, before it was John Oliver was the first person you saw for North of 60, and then Tina Keeper becomes the first because she becomes, the number one star of the show.
Of course, right? There was TV.
And the credit sequence?
Yeah, at the beginning, they showed, the faces of, 5 of the main people of the show. And she was the first person that you get to see after starting with the 3rd season when Eric dies.
Yeah.
If they were to make another movie, would you be interested in reprising your role as Wayne Dééla?
I don't know about a movie, necessarily about a movie, just because Wayne wasn't really, involved in all the dramatic stories that were going on at the time right now, and it just doesn't really feel anything like he would be involved in anything that would happen in Lynx River at this moment.
Maybe doing some construction work.
Yeah.
But I will say this. If there is a reboot, I would strongly consider reprising my role if I was able to direct maybe 1 or 2 episodes.
We need this to happen.
It seems fair.
Where do you see Wayne now?
Shacked up with his girlfriend Yvette and doing construction.
Seems like a good enough life.
He's probably, I don't know. I kind of like to think that he went to school. I kind of like to think he went to school for engineering.
Oh, really? That'd be cool.
Just because of the construction component, right? And that'd just be the next step in the evolution of career-wise, right?
Yeah.
So
And maybe he felt his need to bring back this education and help his community grow. I don't know.
So, which character is like you most in real life, do you think, from the show?
Oh, like me?
Yes.
Probably Leonard. I don't know if any of you guys know Leonard.
Yes, of course.
Well, not
But
personally.
he's always been just like a chill guy and just relaxed. So that would be more my style.
I could picture you also as a Joey, very happy-go-lucky guy, very nice.
That's true.
You're a very sweet guy.
I always
With us 1,000 times.
just because of what happened to Bourbon, right? And it's so sad that just his passing and everything that happened with that. So,
Yes.
fun fact: I actually like to think of, well, not fun fact, but it's actually a very terrible and dark fact. I like to think that North 60 had a curse on it because you had Selena die, you had Merlin die.
Mm-hmm.
I actually got stabbed in the neck.
What?
And
Okay, we need this story, please.
I believe that I broke the North 60 curse.
How did you get stabbed in the neck, please? I want to hear this.
Oh, this is just a bad story, but I was staying at my dad's house in, I don't know, well, I'm not going to say the neighborhood, but in Winnipeg, and it's a very nice neighborhood in Winnipeg, right? Like, very nice. Nothing what you think of what happens in, downtown or say other parts of Winnipeg, because it is a dangerous city. But I was staying at my dad's house. I think I was house sitting or something like that for him. And the neighbor's kids ended up throwing a party, which is fine. I go over for a couple drinks. We're roughly the same age. But this group of, I don't want to call them gangsters, because, yeah, they were in a gang, but, they're just wannabe thugs, really.
Yeah.
And they were trying to jump in this, little kid. He was, 15, 16. It was a high school party, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he obviously didn't want to be jumped in. So I went out there and stopped it. Told them, no, it's not happening on my block, guys. You better go home, blah, 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 blah. They didn't like that. They jumped me. I got stabbed in the neck. I don't know if you guys can see that right there.
Wow.
Shoulder and in the back. And there were 4 or 5 of them. But I remember that we all ended up at the same hospital because, I'm not like a karate expert or a martial art expert or anything like that. But I have had some training, so I know how to throw a punch and I know how to defend myself. And I did a pretty good job on those guys. The cops were impressed. I felt pretty good about myself until, I realized how dangerously close I was to being killed, really.
Yeah. Wow.
And yeah, that's how that happened. So.
Don't do that again. You
need to be a lot more careful.
Yeah, I try these days.
No more going to parties.
Well, I don't know if that's going to be in the cards for me. But definitely a higher class of parties.
How was it to work with not only your dad, but your sister on the show? Who played your sister, Nisa?
It was good. I mean, yeah, it was good. It was kind of weird. Well, I don't want to say weird because it was interesting because, normally when you go to set as an actor, you're not surrounded by family. Mm-hmm. And I was. Because, my dad was on set, my sister was on set, and of course my mom would be on set because my dad would be off working doing his writing stuff, and my mom would be, taking care of the kids.
Yeah.
So it became like this big family thing, which, was very awesome and very forgiving, I want to say, because normally as an actor like that, you don't get, people are kind of, on film sets, people are kind of turt and quick, and they don't, you always say please and thank you on a set, but it's always like, can you get this now, right? It's not, do it at your leisure time. It's do it right now, right way, get it right.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that more, I felt that they were more kid gloves because my mom was around.
Yeah. Well, that's alright.
And funny story, actually, Kaya, my sister Kaya Wheeler, didn't become Lisa on the show to begin with. It was actually another young actor, I forget her name. Again, this is like when I was 10 years old, so I think she had 1 or 2 episodes as Nisa, and then she just shut down, right? She didn't want to perform. She didn't like the pressure. She didn't like the constant, reset and do it again, stuff like that, which, as a child, that can grate on you, and that can just take you out of the moment. So they figured that Kaya would be more pliable because her brother was there, because her dad was there, and because her mom was going to be there. So they brought her on. And actually, speaking of which, because I knew this question was coming, my sister is a very accomplished reader, and I wanted to show you some of her artwork. She made this for me.
Wow.
Yeah,
Thundercats.
yeah. So, yeah, that's awesome.
She also works with the Film Institute, right?
She works with the National Screen Institute right now. I believe she's the coordinator for the Aboriginal Documentary Program and Indigenous First Forces, I do believe, but don't quote me on that. She might have changed her job since COVID and all that stuff. And when we get together, we don't really talk work. We talk.
Yeah, talk. You just want to see each other.
Yeah.
So there are so many talented people on the show now. This is a new question. Who did you not get a scene with that you wish you had? Somebody who was a regular on the show, somebody who just came for like 1 episode, doesn't matter. Just who do you wish you get?
I never actually worked with Gordon Caduceus.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've worked with Tom Jackson, I've worked with Tina, I've worked with Tantu, I've worked with Jimmy Herman, with Joe Goomba.
Yes,
I've worked with all these amazing people, but I never actually got to work with Gordon Caduceus, which was,
Yes, he was quite the
I
character.
felt that lost, and he was such an amazing actor and amazing talent that I felt that I could have learned something from him, which, c'est la vie, but, it's a missed opportunity, I believe. I feel.
Maybe now Wayne is running some empire under Albert's command.
Wayne comes back and becomes the legal hemp operator, or the legal weed operator in Lynx River.
That sounds like a good plot twist.
Much to the chagrin of the RCMP.
I'm sure Michelle will be pleased.
Well, you can't have alcohol. Weed's nothing like alcohol. It's a dry town, but, you never know with those laws.
Yeah, I wonder if they'd shut that down, too. That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Jake W. wants to know, Wayne, was TV your Lynx River hero, or who then? So, who was Wayne's hero?
Whoa, hey, TV was such a bad kid and he was a bully. He bullied me. That's terrible. No, I think what you said was correct, and Wayne would have been more along with Joey and Leonard. Mm-hmm. Just because Joey was learning a lot from Joe. And
especially
and
hunting.
Yeah, and Errol or Leon and Rosie. I don't know that connection there, but I always felt that these two family units were kind of connected somehow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like the influence would have been to go out with Joe and go hunt.
Fair enough. So, Shirley H. Said, Who was your favorite person that you could relate to on the show?
My favorite person that I could relate to. Well, I'll answer this in two parts. I'll answer this as the characters I liked, and I'll answer this as the actors I liked.
Okay.
So I think we covered this a little bit, and it would have been Leonard and Joey for Wayne. He would have been in that crowd. He would have tried to follow in their footsteps and been more pestering towards them as opposed to, let's say, a TD who was the bad kid on the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then as an actor, Dakota was always really, really good to me. Dakota was, someone that I learned a lot from. And then even though I worked with him, I worked with him a couple times after the show, but Adam Beach, when he came in and portrayed Nevada, that was fantastic. Just learning how seriously he took the craft.
Yeah.
And see how hard he worked offset to portray that character. That's what I really took away from those two guys.
His scenes were amazing, and his storyline was just beautiful. I don't think very many people could pull off those storylines. He did a great job with them. We love them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a great actor.
Wayne, was Hannah your first love from Tanis W?
Yeah, I think Hannah would have been Wayne's first love. I think just from the emotion that there was when news came back to Lynx River when Hannah died,
Mm-hmm.
that Wayne was obviously heartbroken, and you could tell that in the emotions he portrayed in that scene. Like, he didn't really say anything. He's just, I think I remember that. I think that we were eating a cheeseburger, and then there's a pan or a dolly, and it ended up on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had to, just portray that sadness and that heartbreak with a look, which was really hard to do.
Yeah, in the coffee shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then, of course, you were mad at Nisa because she had Hannah's dresser, so you were taking all the clothes out of there, and she was crying.
I actually don't even remember that. I just remember the look because we had to work so hard at it. My dad, this is a terrible story to tell, but the weeks leading up to this episode that we were going to shoot, I had no idea, right? Like, I'm a kid at this point. I had no idea what was going on or the emotional context or what's happening in the story. But he pulls me aside and tells me, okay, you're too old, you're not cute anymore, and you have to learn how to act. So I'm like wondering what's going on. And then he tells me about the scene coming up, and tells me how hard it is to do something like that without speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I really got serious about acting, and that's when we started doing acting lessons and performance and all of this other stuff, and just really trying to dissect what it meant to be an actor and how to draw on your experiences to portray this emotion that is a pretty serious moment in the show.
What have you done since leaving North of 60? Like, what was the first thing you did other than, like, now you're doing writing and directing?
The first thing I did was go back to high school. we have a high school here in Winnipeg called Tech Block. I went to Tech, where I actually did a dual diploma program, which is with a high school education, but you also do a vocation.
Oh, awesome.
And I did radio and television broadcasting because that's what I was around, and got a dual diploma in that, and ended up working for a couple local news stations here in Winnipeg, just behind the camera and in the studios and stuff like that. Then again, I got stabbed, and I withdrew from pretty much everything. I made a couple of choices in my life that I would go off to film school. Went out to Vancouver. That's where I lived with Renai for a couple of weeks, and went to film school. While I was in film school, I did 4 years of film school, and I was always constantly back and forth between Renai's house and my place and school. So she really filled in that that family support system that I didn't have because most of my family was here.
Oh.
Although my dad was one of my screenwriting instructors in school too. No matter what I do, I could never get away. This man's been editing my papers since I was 12 years old.
Give him a break, come on.
Well, at least I'm trying to pay him now.
So, traditional beats, you wrote and directed it.
Yeah.
We have Alan Sutherland and Mae Louise Campbell as the speakers in it, as well as you narrating the story about the tail-feathered woman.
Mm-hmm.
Great short film.
Yeah, I definitely recommend everybody watches it if you haven't already. We will post the link again.
Well, thank you so much, guys. Yeah, I actually got that tail feather woman story from Arvo Looking Horse, who is a famous Sioux Dakota chief down there and down in the States. And this all happened before COVID. This is actually a few years ago. I'm able to put it online now because the rights have been released from APTN, other places that bought it overseas and stuff like that. Yeah, so I got the story from Arnold. I wanted a woman to narrate it just because it is a female story. It is a woman's story. You know, the drum was gifted to a woman, so I would just want to have that consistency in the storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, of course, things happen when you're filming and when you're in production. All of my narrators had to drop out because they're.
Hello?
Oh, got a little bit of a freeze up in the video area.
Hello? Hold on, sorry, everybody. I guess that is it. I'm sorry. It seems like that is it. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in for this special interview with Cam Courchene. Hopefully, we can have him back sometime to discuss his movie more.